Любка Kachakova from the Consulate of Bulgaria in LA.
Hello, it's a pleasure for me to be here. I'm the trade consul and trade attaché of Bulgaria at the General Consulate here in Los Angeles. I worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers as a consultant in Sofia and in Brussels. I have political experience. I've been Deputy Minister of Environment, responsible for water management and transboundary water issues, and Deputy Minister of Economy, responsible for foreign trade and investments. So my major job in the United States will be to promote Bulgaria and Central Europe, of course, and Europe as a whole as an investment destination. And I hope that our session will be very useful for all of us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
The perspective is such that the budget is great. The surplus in Germany is great, but it's not something we can rely on sustainably. So how do we deal with it? Germany has pronounced that if a recession comes, we are ready to invest a minimum of 100 billion euros into the economy to keep the German economy, and then with that, of course, the European economy afloat. So there are mechanisms and policies in place to do that. Is that sustainable? Can that be done every year, every budget cycle? Probably not. But that's where these movements have to be there. But we have to look at these things from a European perspective. Now, he said it can't just be 2 or 3 European countries that participate in a group like this G7 along with others. It's going to be, in his perspective, a G3 type model, where it's going to be the European Union, it's going to be the United States of America, and then possibly China and or Russia. That's as far, and I totally agree with him. You can't sustain a successful global economy with just some of the countries around the world. It has to be a regional, pan-regional, and then a global.
It was not a part of your study, I saw, unfortunately, but what I would like to say is that Bulgaria is one of the most optimistic towards you as a union, as a perspective, as a future. One of the conclusions that may be taken from the study is that the oldest member states were less optimistic, I would say, than the new member states, and the explanation, for me at least, is that the enormous year funds that were invested in the infrastructure, technology, innovations, education, raised the optimism of the Central and Eastern European countries. As a whole, I think that the new EU Commission that took office on the 1st of November is really very positive, and I'm sure that your next study will say more optimism for the European Union, because the agenda of the new Commission is really very impressive, and as political put on the front page, EU Commission wants to make Europe great again, on shared history, shared values, and shared interests. And the economic relations are so deep that I cannot believe that there is a person or force in the world that can break them, that can destroy them. I'm convinced that no one can make America great again by hurting these transatlantic relations that have been built for centuries. So, in my view, everything is reversible, and Europe is the one which is more mature in these tough conversations. I don't want to use the word war. So I'm optimist. I believe that after the historical meeting last year, 25th of July, between President Trump and President Jean-Claude Juncker, the executive working group that has been set up to work together and to follow the agenda. And the agenda was very clear: 0 tariffs, 0 non-tariff barriers, and 0 subsidies, state subsidies on non-automotive sector. So the executive working group has his agenda. They work together. We have some advancement in regulatory framework, conformity assessment. In some sectors we have reached agreements, and I'm optimistic that from bottom-up level the work will be done properly, and at the end the common interest of Europe and the United States will prevail over the emotions. because at investment level, the connections are so deep that I don't expect that both administrations will go against the interests of their own businesses. It's impossible to continue on a long term. If you see the figures, I don't want to bore you with figures. If you see the figures, Europe is the largest investor, greenfield foreign direct investor in the US, and US is the largest in the EU. So in terms of investment, technology transfers, digital enabled services, we are so deeply connected that these tough conversations cannot last long anymore.
Just wanting to be clear that when I use that awkward expression of Group War, I didn't mean the US-EU relationship, just the global context of China, Russia, US.
I would just add that I agree with you, and I go to these conferences a lot. I have these talks privately and with businesses a lot. There's too much doom and gloom out there. The U.S.-European, the German-American relation continues to be the strongest relationship in the world. It will be. There's no way around it. The Germans and the Americans, the Europeans and the Americans realize that in order to counterbalance developments elsewhere geopolitically with Russia and China, this relationship will need to be sustained, and it will be. I want to leave you with a very, very positive outlook. I think a lot of what we're seeing is media reporting. It's very sensationalist reporting that's going on. Most of us here are subject to the news that's out there.
Brexit is an opportunity also for Central European countries, and especially for countries with strategical geographical location like Bulgaria, and especially in the field of innovation, technology, and startups and IT. A lot of companies are looking at Central Europe and in Bulgaria for their logistics centers. And also what I see for 2 months being here, that a lot of American companies and venture capitals, they're asking for support, for information to set up their business in Bulgaria. And I'm very happy because for EU, Brexit is a very big challenge with a lot of uncertainty at political and economical level, but at the same time, Central European countries like Bulgaria, we also, not so aggressively as Germany, but we want to take the attention and to welcome all investors that are interested to invest in that region.
That's called confidence. Okay, let's do a little bit of a deep dive on the agenda of the new European Commission. I know that Lucca may have something to add on that, because you've already started talking about how hopeful you are that many things will speed up.
Yes, we are very hopeful. We after the era of Jean-Claude Juncker, we have a woman being elected as a president, and in this field, Europe is one step ahead of the United States. Mrs. Ursula von der Leyen is the new president, and she had quite an ambitious agenda. I will take a note from her speech. That we will take bold action against climate change, build our partnership with the United States, and define our relations with a more self-assertive China. She said, build our relations with the United States, which means that this turbulence, political turbulence between the United States and Europe will be to great extent one of the topics of the new European Commission. The other of the topics will be the climate change, tackling the climate change. And in this field, Europe has a very ambitious agenda. The green financing will be a topic. The European Investment Bank will be transformed to Europe's climate bank with the ambitions also what is very important is to reduce the emissions. What else? The reforming WTO is one of the very important points in the agenda of the European Commission, because WTO is not ready to respond adequately to the challenges facing now with the increasing share of digital economy in the global economy. And of course, we must work together closely with the United States and with Japan to reform WTO, because the global economy is facing challenges with unfair practices from third parties, and this is on the topic of the European Commission. And of course, the regulatory agreement with the United States, conformity assessment, which will ease the business, because companies trading in the US and EU will more easily have their compliance assessment documents.
So we'll talk a lot more about green and going green, and also about the transatlantic relationship, but I wanted to ask the other panelists.
I just think, the impact of it that we're seeing is the requirements that are now on the table from a brand standpoint, that also become advantages if you're able to meet those requirements. So one would be from a sustainability standpoint. So being able to reduce carbon footprints, minimize packaging, minimize waste, be able to demonstrate and prove to both consumers and retailers that your company, your brand has a sustainability platform is not just a nice to have, it's a need to have. And so that can play to strengths for brands that are really already on that trend. So California is well positioned for that. So being a California company, being based in LA, a lot of brands are already on that path. So that bodes well for sort of California, European relations going forward. And secondly, thinking about the actual ingredients that go in the product. So Honest Beauty, the brand that I represent, is a clean beauty brand. And when we say clean, it's defined as ingredients that are non-toxic to the skin, in both inside and around you. And more, not just consumers, but retailers are looking for specific lists of no-go ingredients that they will not allow, whether it's a regulatory rule or not. And so seeing that as a major trend. So it can be an advantage for companies that are able to meet those requirements, but certainly if you're not, it will be a significant issue.
Talking about GDPR, what I could say that across Europe there is some, if I could say, not conflict, but in some countries it's more tough to take the GDPR standard certification than in other countries. And in my view, Europe has to improve that and to make GDPR more accessible, because so far GDPR is like a barrier for some high-tech investments and startups in Europe. We have a lot of cases with companies which want to develop their products, but then when they see how tough and difficult it is to obtain the GDPR certificates, they're resistant, and they look for another place in the world, which is not in the interest of Europe at all.
Thank you so much.